Moments later, Devlin walked out into the hallway with me slung over his shoulder. "Hey Jebediah," he yelled. "You looking for this bitch?"
"Well, well, boy,"
Jebediah said, walking down the hallway towards us.
"Why, you might be my blood after all."
"Why don't we just find out then?" Devlin growled, walking right up to Jebediah with me. "Maybe I want to do a little experimenting on her myself before I let you have her." Jebediah stared at Devlin for one long, nerve-wracking moment, searching his face. When Devlin never flinched, never changed his expression, he smiled.
"Right this way, son,"
he expressed, turning around to lead him to the operating room. Devlin squeezed my leg and headed after him, keeping everything locked down while I faked being unconscious.
"Set her down here,"
Jebediah instructed, motioning to the exam table and turning to open a drawer. Pulling out a syringe, he drew it full of an unknown, murky substance, and then turned back around to hand it to Devlin.
"Here. This will liven things up some."
"No," Devlin spat. "I want her to feel every last goddamn thing I do to her. Fucking bitch. She blew me off for months until I promised her a nice dinner and a walk through the grounds here. She had no idea what was here, but I knew. Oh, I fucking knew." He leaned down into my face, teeth bared. "You got what you fucking deserved, you prick tease." I could feel the rage sweep through the room, and I knew it was coming from Devlin. When this was over, if we both lived through it, he and I needed to have a nice, long talk. Keeping my breath shallow and slow, I instinctively rolled my eyes back when Devlin pried one open. "She's still out anyhow," he stated. "Hand me a scalpel." Jebediah smiled broadly, handing over the same one he'd used so many years ago. Devlin took it, examining the blade. Well, it was a good thing he'd had all his shots, with how rusty and dirty the blade was. Still, what was a little infection compared to dying? Leaning down, he began slicing my shirt open to expose my stomach. Since I was wearing leggings, he just jerked them down out of the way, exposing me from bra to the top of my pelvis. And then he neatly cut open his own finger as he began to fake cut me, leaving a thick trail of his own blood behind. On cue, I began screaming bloody murder and trying to move away from the blade, causing the orderlies to step in at once and hold me down. I met Devlin's narrowed eyes with fear and saw him give a very faint wink. There was a faint glow coming from the pendant he'd put back on me, and I felt something rush through me.
"Ooh-wee. That's a mighty nice clean cut you made there, son,"
Jebediah complimented, and leaned in to examine it closely. Upon finding it was just blood, he tilted his head.
"What the hell is this?"
I twisted one hand out of the grasp of an orderly, smearing Devlin's blood over my stomach and abdomen, and then reaching to grab the pendant with a bloodied hand. "It's payback, you son of a bitch," I growled. Devlin drove the scalpel into the skull of the nearest orderly, dropping him on the floor, and then twisted to punch the next one. The orderly's skull exploded like an overripe pumpkin, but Devlin shook off the gore and turned to face Jebediah. "Bet you didn't count on your own blood turning on you, did you?" he asked conversationally.
"You aren't any blood of mine, you lying bastard,"
he roared, charging at Devlin. I sat straight up on the bed then, and reached out to grab a hold of Jebediah with the strength I didn't know I had. "You don't want to do that," I warned, meeting those dead eyes evenly.
Who the hell do you think you're dealing with, bitch?
He screamed in my face. "Something that should have been cast out a long fucking time ago," I murmured. "Your reign of terror is over, Jebediah Walker. It's time for you to go meet whomever you made that bargain with all those years ago." Jebediah began to laugh then, and the sound echoed through the room.
What makes you think he's not right here in this room, girlie?
He asked and began to morph into something that wasn't human. This was something we had not expected, nor had we planned on happening. Our plan had worked, up until this point. So while the good doctor was becoming something else, Devlin snatched me up off the exam table and ran out the door with me. "What now?" I asked. "We get the fuck out of here because there's no plan B," he answered immediately, eyes scanning the hall for an escape route. But the hallway just stretched on, into infinity, with no doors leading outside and no windows either. Eventually, we were forced to stop and assess the situation. Leaning against the wall and breathing heavily, Devlin scanned the darkness. Something down that hallway made a sound that neither one of us had ever heard before. It was like a cross between a dying whale and a lion, reverberating down the hall in waves. "Why did my 3 times over grandmother have to marry a psychopath?" Devlin muttered, looking for a room to duck into. "Come on," I said suddenly, spotting something. Devlin followed me a few feet down the hallway, halting when he realized what I was standing in front of. "You realize we have one shot, and one shot only of getting clear?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, "but what else can we do?" He sighed, digging around in his jacket for a lighter or a pack of matches. Pulling out a box of matches, he met my eyes. "All right, let's do this then." "Hey, you motherfucker!" I screamed, twisting the valve to the gas main to open it all the way up. Gas hissed out of the open valve, and we both stepped well behind it. Something began moving in the darkness, heading right for where we stood. As it drew closer, we were able to get a good look at him. No, this wasn't human, what we were looking at. The eyes were pools of black, and the skull was elongated. A gaping mouth showed rows upon rows of jagged teeth. It was tall, taller than Devlin even, and the limbs were twisted and contorted, causing it to move in a jerky, stilted fashion. When it was 10 feet away, Devlin pulled out a match. "I'd better see you on the other side," he murmured. "Same," I said, watching that thing get closer and closer. "Now, Devlin, now!" I screamed. Devlin lit the match and tossed it, turning to grab me up and run the opposite direction. The fireball that erupted knocked us 20 feet, though, and we hit the floor hard enough to knock us out completely. Then, the whole goddamn building exploded, sending a bloody fireball screaming into the night air. Devlin was the first to come to, and found that he was almost buried under bricks and chunks of mortar. Gagging on the acrid smell of burned flesh and rot, he clawed his way out from under the rubble and began searching for me. "Vanessa!" he called, throwing bricks to either side as he dug through the destruction. "Vanessa, answer me!" In the distance, he could hear the wail of sirens and renewed his effort to find me. He really needed to get us both the fuck out of there before the police arrived. Otherwise, we were both going to jail. God damn it, he swore, frantically digging through the rubble until he found my arm. Oh God, no. When he had me free, he tossed me over his shoulder and sprinted off into the woods behind the ruined building. Setting me down gently on the ground, he checked for a pulse first. It was there, but it was thready. Making sure my airways were clear, he started chest compressions on me, stopping after 10 to blow air into my lungs. The minutes began to tick by, with no signs that I was going to come around, and he realized he was going to have to take me to the hospital to save me. Praying to every god he knew the name of, he picked me up and carried me out of the woods to the group of policemen and firemen examining the ruins of the asylum. "Hey," he called, tears blurring his vision. "She's not breathing." Paramedics were called at once, and they took me away in the back of the ambulance to the local hospital, leaving him to deal with the police. "Why the hell were you kids out here?" the sergeant demanded, hands on his hips. "I'm not sure you'd believe me if I told you," Devlin answered honestly, exhausted. "I'm not sure that I believe it, and I was there." "You realize you were trespassing?" he pushed. Devlin nodded and wiped away a tear. "I know that," he said, breath hitching. "I know we had no business here, but—" "Let me ask you something, son," the sergeant said, pulling Devlin away from the others. "Did you destroy him?" Devlin uttered a harsh laugh. "God, I hope so," he expressed. "We opened the gas main. Vanessa spotted the valve when we were trying to find a way out. When that son of a bitch was 3 feet away, well, I lit a match and threw it right in its face." The sergeant nodded, deep in thought. "That your black Jeep?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Devlin replied. "Come on, son," he said. "Let's get you to it, and then get you to the hospital to check out that girl of yours." The whole ordeal inside that asylum had taken up 3 hours, it turned out. It was another 3 hours before they had me stabilized, and it was almost 8 in the morning before I even opened my eyes. "Hey," Devlin said, wanting to touch me but afraid to. "Hey," I croaked, wincing at how hoarse I was. "Where am I?" "You're in the hospital," he answered. "That explosion buried us both, but you got the worst of it." "Mom's gonna flip shit," I said, closing my eyes. "You have to call her, Devlin." "No, he doesn't, because I'm right here," Mom said, rushing into the room with Devlin's mom right on her heels. "I got the call at 7 as I was getting off work. Carrie was waiting at my car when I walked out to leave for here." "Mom?" Devlin greeted, unable to face her. Carrie just sighed before turning to me. "It was an incredibly stupid thing that you both did," she expressed. "But it was also incredibly brave, I am forced to admit." "We met the sergeant that was on the scene on the way in," Mom said, looking at us both. "You aren't going to be charged with anything. He wrote it up as a freak explosion. He also said, off the record, that he was thankful you'd done what you did." "That thing is gone, then?" I asked, unsure. Devlin nodded. "It's gone, Vanessa. I saw the fireball engulf it before I whipped around to try to get us the hell out of the way." "Good," I said, closing my eyes. "The next time you two get a harebrained idea like this, I'm going to tie you both down and sit on you," Mom expressed, running a hand through her hair. I think I lost 10 years off of my life. Same here, Carrie said, touching her shoulder. Just call me, Marianne. I'll be more than happy to help you tie them down. I was released from the hospital on Tuesday, and Devlin took me home in his Jeep. I lost your pendant, I told him, not feeling it around my neck. That's the least of my concerns, sweetheart, he said, putting his hand on my thigh. I almost lost you. That's not something I ever want to repeat. Well, there won't be a next time, I murmured. He's gone. He or whatever he was. Jebediah Walker was indeed gone. Crews that worked the cleanup on the asylum found his decayed remains, along with those of his orderlies. They cleared the land, letting it go back to nature. Devlin and I took a trip down there a few months later, just to see it. This time, there was no oppressive feeling. No miasma of hate and violence. I hope all those poor souls he tormented found peace now, I murmured. Devlin smiled. Oh, I think they did. I think they did, he said, and leaned down to kiss me, before leading me away back into downtown.